All you have to do is ask my father, who literally was shot in the Orangeburg Massacre, right? Who helped found SNCC, who marched with Marion Barry and Stokely Carmichael and Martin Luther King, and the list goes on and on and on. And he will tell you today that he feels like this country's in 1954. And so if you want to talk about somebody...
That doesn't mean it is.
Well,
you said he feels that way. That's ridiculous.
Boy, he's really, I mean, it's a good strategy. Like, while the Democrats are getting all this bad publicity, just shut up. He doesn't usually do something that smart.
It's like that scene.
Last time, we showed you how BillMaher called out MSNBC hosts for their double standards. Well, this time, CNN's Bakari Sellers is the one getting exposed. You know, the guy who always brings up race whenever he's losing an argument? Yeah, him. His biased opinions got completely taken apart by Ben Shapiro, and let me tell you, it was both brutal and entertaining. I can't wait to break it all down for you.
The Ben Shapiros of the world. These people who don't necessarily have the intellect to have honest discussions, but yet they're able to become millionaires because they're actually just circulating and
I showed you that clip on purpose to set the stage for what happened when Ben Shapiro and Bakari Sellers faced off on BillMaher's show. In the clip you just watched, Sellers took a jab at Shapiro's intelligence because apparently the award-winning Daily Wire host isn't smart enough by his standards. Bold move. But when Sellers finally went head-to-head with Shapiro on Maher's show, let's just say the audience quickly realized who was actually struggling to keep up. Take a listen.
Many confounds when it comes to these particular issues, and unless you remove the statistical confounds, you end up with trying to blame vague, shadowy figures like implicit bias, which are innately, insanely difficult, if not impossible, to measure.
I don't know what he did.
See what I mean about CNN? Ben Shapiro wasn't speaking in some ancient, hard-to-understand language. He was simply saying that the race debate has multiple layers. If you don't break them down properly, you end up blaming everything on vague, unprovable ideas like implicit bias, which is about as easy to measure as Bigfoot sightings. Where's the lie? The truth is, the race debate is far more complex than these media personalities want to admit. But sure, let's just blame it all on some invisible boogeyman. And yet, even after completely missing the point, Sellers still had the nerve to take jabs at Shapiro. Well, let's see how he handled things when BillMaher stepped in. Watch this.
All you have to do is ask my father, who literally was shot in the Orangeburg Massacre, right? Who helped found SNCC, who marched with Marion Barry and Stokely Carmichael and Martin Luther King, and the list goes on and on and on. And he will tell you today that he feels like this country's in 1954. And so if you want to talk about somebody...
That doesn't mean it is.
Well,
you said he feels that way. That's ridiculous. It is. Come on.
Ben Shapiro was simply saying we should focus on real issues of racism instead of getting lost in emotions. Because, let's be real, feelings don't always match reality. Just because Bakari Sellers' father feels like America has gone back to the 1960s doesn't magically make it true. And credit to BillMaher, he actually called that out. But am I surprised? Not at all. The woke crowd has always put emotions above facts and data. Perfect example? These are the same people who say, you are whatever you feel you are. So if a black man feels like he's a white woman, congratulations, he's apparently a white woman now. This isn't about truth or logic. It's about pushing a narrative, no matter how disconnected from reality it is. And the second you challenge it, you're suddenly hateful, ignorant, or worse. Meanwhile, the rest of us are just sitting here, wondering when common sense became offensive.
Ridiculous notion is for either one of you all to have the audacity to believe that you understand what the experience is to be.
I have to object to that. I cannot talk about it because I am not part of a group. I am a sentient human being. You're right. There's two ways you cannot understand something. One is to be too far from it. We're too far from it. We can't see like you can. One is to be too close to something. And then sometimes you can't see it accurately either.
Spot on, BillMaher. The idea that you can't talk about racism unless you've personally experienced it is completely absurd. By that logic, no one could discuss poverty unless they've been homeless or talk about crime unless they've been a victim. That's just not how rational discussions work. And let's be real, just because someone feels like a victim doesn't automatically make them right. Emotions can cloud judgment, which is exactly why open discussion is necessary to find real solutions. But do race hustlers like Bakari Sellers, Joy Reid, and Sunny Hostin want that? Of course not. They thrive on division. Instead of promoting honest conversations, they use race-baiting tactics to fuel resentment and keep people locked in a victim mindset. Because let's be honest, if racism wasn't the massive, unbeatable problem they claim it is, what would they even talk about on primetime TV? This isn't about progress. It's about power. The more they convince people they're oppressed, the more influence they hold. Meanwhile, real solutions get ignored, and the very people they claim to fight for, they're left exactly where they started.
Close to something, I am that.
I know.
And so, but what I am saying though is for you to discount my father's experience and say
I'm not discounting it.
and to say it was silly.
I'm not.
No, he was shot.
No,
Were you shot?
No, but he's still alive. Like he's right here. Like,
Right, but the idea that if I were to say to you, as a Jew, that the experience of Jews in the United States today is worse than the experience of Jews in Europe in 1939, I would not be stating accurately.
Correct.
It's not true.
That's
and it's
right.
also not true to say that the experience of black people in America in 2024 is worse on a general level than the experience of black men in 1954 in Alabama. That's just crazy.
but I mean, I think
See what happens when race baiters rely on emotions instead of facts? The moment they go up against real debaters like Ben Shapiro or sharp hosts like BillMaher, they start stammering, just like Bakari Sellers is doing here. Why? Because when your whole argument is based on feelings rather than facts, it falls apart the second someone applies even a little scrutiny. Take the 1960s, for example. Back then, racial injustice was brutally real. Black Americans faced legalized segregation under Jim Crow laws, were denied voting rights through literacy tests and intimidation, and risked their lives just for demanding equality. Peaceful protesters, like those in the Selma March, were beaten by police simply for marching. Now compare that to 2025. Black Americans hold high-ranking positions in government, business, and media. Laws explicitly ban racial discrimination. Diversity initiatives ensure representation across almost every industry. Is racism completely gone? Number? But is it anything like the 1960s? Not even close. And yet, people like Sellers act as if nothing has changed. Why? Because their entire platform depends on keeping the oppression narrative alive. If they admitted real progress, what would they even talk about?
I mean, it's a good strategy. Like, while the Democrats are getting all this bad publicity, just shut up. He doesn't usually do something that smart.
It's like that scene.
This sums up Bakari Sellers perfectly. He's just talking in circles. Nobody is saying that life is perfect for Black and minority communities. There are real injustices that still need to be addressed, including racism. But to claim that America has somehow gone back to the 1960s, that's as ridiculous as a velociraptor opening doors in Jurassic Park, terrifyingly dumb and completely unrealistic. Here's what many people miss. Sellers' entire career is built on playing the victim. Just like Sonny Hostin and Don Lemon, his influence depends on convincing people that nothing has improved, that oppression is just as bad as ever, and that they alone are the voices of the struggle. The moment someone challenges that narrative, especially with facts, they take it as a direct attack on their relevance. Because let's be honest, if racial progress was openly acknowledged, what would these people even talk about? They'd lose their TV spots, their book deals, and their carefully crafted image as truth-tellers. That's why, when someone like Ben Shapiro comes along and dismantles their argument, they don't debate, they lash out. Because the real threat isn't racism disappearing, it's people realizing it's not 1965 anymore.
About the conversations you and I have had, Whoopi, so many times about the co-opting of the word woke. And the fact that the right somehow has made it a dirty word. To be woke is a word that came out of the African-American community, and it was about acknowledging social justice inequities, acknowledging people suffering. It is not a bad thing to care about other people, to care about the sufferings of others, and to act. And so it angers me when people are like, this woke stuff has got to go. That's telling me that you don't care about my lived experience. You don't care about the oppression of the LGBTQ community. You don't care about the oppression of the disabled. You don't care about the oppression of immigrants. You don't care about your fellow neighbor. And that is ungodly. That is.
Listening to these so-called race activists is exhausting. Now they're complaining that the term woke has been co-opted, when in reality, they're the ones who hijacked and ruined its original meaning. Once upon a time, Woke simply meant being aware of injustice, but they twisted it into a toxic ideology that demands blind conformity, demonizes opposing views, and cancels anyone who dares to push back. Now that the word has become a joke, they're suddenly upset. Please. First off, we didn't even need the term woke in the first place. Thinking critically and caring about marginalized people should be common sense. It's called basic human decency. No catchy buzzword required. But of course, that's not good enough for the woke mob. They don't just want awareness, they want control. And why are they so obsessed with dragging Christianity into every debate, as if it's the only religion that speaks about justice and compassion? It's pretty obvious. Christianity is an easy target, a low-hanging fruit they can attack without consequences. Funny how they don't go after certain other religions with the same energy. Wonder why that is.
You know, it's become, and I make fun of it too, because it's become an eye roll in many ways. If woke, I assume at a certain moment, and it wasn't that long ago before we didn't have the term. I only heard it, I don't know what it was, 3-4 years ago? 5 years ago at most, when we heard the term woke, and it was like alert to injustice. I was like, okay, I'm down with that. I always have been. I hope people still understand that about me. But yes, it became sort of a byword for a lot of this goof.
Exactly, Maher. Pure nonsense that defies common sense at every level. That's why people like Bakari Sellers keep pushing oppression narratives, even though Black Americans today have more rights, opportunities, and representation than ever before. They know life in 2025 isn't like the 1960s, but admitting that would ruin their entire grift. And let's not forget the other brand of nonsense they promote, like allowing biological men to compete against women in sports and share their bathrooms. Apparently, fairness and biology no longer matter as long as it fits the woke agenda. Women train their whole lives for a chance at victory, only to lose to men who identify as female but still have all the biological advantages. And we're just supposed to clap and call this progress? This isn't about equality anymore. It's about pushing radical ideologies that make no sense, even when reality proves them wrong. But the moment you call it out, they label you a bigot. Because when facts aren't on their side, silencing the opposition is the only move they have left. And that wraps up today's video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.